an APEC master plan author, and he is a nominee for U.S. and Hawaii Nobel Prize Peace Laureate. Nobel Peace Prize Laureate, yeah. And Russell has experience planning with the state of Hawaii, he has experience planning with APEC, and he is well familiar with what goes on in Asia Pacific, and has been involved in a lot of issues, follows it closely, and he comes on our show once in a while. We always enjoy having him. Welcome back to the show, Russell Hanmo.
Yeah, thank you, Jay, for welcoming me again today and for the Think Tank show.
Yeah. So let's talk about the Koreas today. In fact, we've sort of entitled this "What's Going On in North Korea" from the perspective of China, South Korea, and the U.S. And indeed, a lot, and it's threatening. And Rex Tillerson is involved, making some pretty provocative statements in the Trump administration. And I think people have some concern because of all of this. But let's go back a little and look at what do we have here. After the Second World War, we had two Germanys for a long time, for a lifetime, a generation anyway, until the wall came down back when. And we have the North Korea, South Korea disparity. I mean, how did that happen? What does that mean? How close is that to the Germany kind of experience? And what perpetuates this sort of thing? Why can't they get together? Why are they so angry at each other?
Well, if you look at the history of North and South Korea, and going back to what you just mentioned about the Berlin Wall, when President Ronald Reagan and at the time being there was a Premier Gorbachev from the Soviet Union, and I remember that famous speech that Ronald Reagan made when he was standing by at the Berlin Wall. "I dare you, Mr. Gorbachev, to tear this wall down." And then the wall came down, and they had the unification between the East and the West Germany. And I got a feeling if they play their cards right, and I know that our president, Donald Trump, is inviting Kim Jong-un to have a discussion to bring a peace treaty based on our Armistice Treaty they had back in 1958 when President Truman brought it up, and that's when they started to have that. And then back in, the North Korea was occupied by Russian Soviet Union, and they're more communist, and they're getting their supplies from the Soviet Union, and they're coming down from the north to south. And that kind of escalated the whole thing of having that 38th parallel, and that's the borderline. And to me, right now, I know there's been so many discussion about unification between North and South Korea that we're trying to engage in.
You've been involved in that. You actually organized a resolution for the state Senate, was it, a few years ago? Talk about that.
Yeah, matter of fact, because of my APEC master plan, I had a good friend from South Korea, Professor Jong-il Lee. We had a discussion about between large enterprise and small medium enterprise, and I kind of mentioned that we had in Japan had a similar kind of after the World War II, where a large enterprise corporation will work with the small and medium enterprise companies, and that's what happened to South Korea with the Korean War. They call it Chiba, and Japanese used to call it Zaibatsu, which they have a big enterprise corporation controlling controlling the smaller medium corporation for parts and materials, so they can work together. And I think if you look at the parallel development between the World War II and the Korean War, Japan and South Korea kind of went in a similar fashion, and the United States start working with those countries and start up a military bases installation over there. And basically, we have a security agreement with Japan. We have a security agreement with South Korea.
We have several thousand troops in South Korea right now.
Exactly, and they're all kind of getting geared, because of the missile threats that we've been getting from the North Korea with the Kim Jong-un regime. And I know just yesterday, they're just installing the THAAD, which is Interceptor missiles that just in case.
These are missiles in South Korea.
Exactly.
To defend South Korea.
Exactly, for defecting some of these missiles, so that, I know that North Korea has this Buzdam missile, which travels about, they just had they did a test this weekend, which the test was was a failure for their missile because they don't have the propellant.
Well, you know, but you
thrust to go
hear
there.
scuttlebutt, and I'd like to ask you if you know anything about this. Scuttlebutt to the effect that these failures in these missiles are due in large part to American computer hacking. We hack them, they hack us, and we are apparently, if you believe this, have the ability to hack their weapons. Any truth? Have you heard more about that?
I haven't heard in details, but I know some of this information is probably classified, so I don't think it'll be coming up in the press. But we do have the technology in the satellite. I know that the U.S. Air Force has some kind of mechanism to go in the satellite and kind of destroy some of these communication devices that they do. So, other than that, and I'm not ready to discuss about this, some of these technicality information.
But you know, the thing, the two Koreas are. It's been what? How many years since the end of the Korean War? 1953, I want to say. And how many years is that? My goodness, that is a long time. Mm-hmm. That is, 60 years plus. Mm-hmm. And I'm thinking, that the families, you like to think there are families from one side or the other that still have relationships. I don't think they do. I think it's just been 3 generations plus, and they haven't been able to talk to each other. Aside from the people who defect from the north to the south, there's very little contact. There's no media between the two of them, no print, no phones, no television, no nothing. And it's sort of sad that these people, the Korean people, have been divided this way. And even at this point, there's no love lost on either side. Very tragic, actually, in the larger view of world history. This is a tragic evolution. Why are they so angry?
Well, that's a good, if you look at the history of Korea in general, if you go like 1948, when Harry Truman, because there was no armistice treaty involved, and if you look at the north, it was occupied by the Russian communists, were behind the North Korea, and when they came down and based on the 38th parallel, we call it DMZ zone.
38th parallel.
Yeah, 38th parallel, demilitarized zone there, or dead man zone that we call it in certain ways. But and they've got so many mines there, and even we try to have this unification committee between North and South to unite as one Korea, and we set up the Kaohsiung Industrial Park just to give them some economic development opportunity.
That was
business.
a phenomenal experience. I mean, I think it's been shut down or partially shut down with these latest hostilities, but that was where North Korean labor would participate in a South Korean industrial enterprise there, and they were actually working together, right?
Yeah, exactly. And they were, making slippers, clothing, some of these tangible goods that the North Korea can for consumption there. But what happened there? I think there was roughly about 50,000 workers there working on low income wages, and North Koreans were kind of using as a slave labor kind of approach and generating a lot of those revenues. And maybe those revenues were based on gearing up for the making manufacturing missiles as well, which they should be using for human services as well.
Yeah, you hear this interesting dichotomy where North Korea has no money, there's no food, they're all substandard. It's a non-economy kind of thing. At the same time, he has plenty of money. Kim Jong-un had plenty of money to build nuclear bombs as much as he wants, and this is very tragic. These people are starving, and he's building these bombs. And you also hear that this was in the New York Times not too long ago, that he has been doing computer hacking on banks all around the world through proxies in other countries, but his proxies, where they actually loot the banks, and this money comes to North Korea, and it is used for weapons. It is used for nuclear development, which is, again, tragic because these people are starving. And, you try to find some kind of bright light, a light at the end of the tunnel. It's hard, but I think we should discuss that. Do you see a light at the end of the tunnel on North Korea?
I think, it's possible that, we have to bring everything on the table, just like our Vice President Pence said, as well with General Mattis of our Department of Defense Secretary. And when we Last matter of fact, 2 weeks ago, our Vice President Mike Pence went to Japan, South Korea, then he visited Indonesia and Australia, and he came to our U.S. Pacific Command in Hawaii and addressed our Pacific commander here at the troops here, saying that we got to stand by and be ready for the worst scenario case, and hopefully we can come up with diplomacy first, and before we can, strategically use our military might or so in those kind of terms. But from the United States point of view, we've always been a peacekeeping country, that we don't want to demoralize or destroy any entities in government relations.
Well, we have a new administration now, Russell, and sometimes they rattle sabers. Rex Tillerson's been rattling sabers and making provocative comments, which is really not consistent with earlier policy, and it's not probably not a good idea, because Kim Jong-un, is somebody who you don't want to provoke. But let's talk about Kim Jong-un. I mean, because he's the driver on all of this. He's the one who kills his relatives when they get in his way. He's the one who insists on absolute power, authority. He wants people to worship him. I mean, they had a bunch of doctors doing eye surgery, went to North Korea a few years ago, and they saved the sight, or returned the sight of many hundreds of people. And when they took the bandages off, everybody said, "Thank you, Kim Jong-un. Thank you for restoring our sight." But it wasn't Kim Jong-un who restored their sight. He's got some kind of a worship thing going on there. It's all perverse. And so, what kind of a guy is he? We know he went to school in Switzerland. We know he speaks English. We know he knows world affairs. We know he's a very cagey guy. He's the mouse that roared, but maybe he's more than a mouse that roared. What do you think?
Yeah, I know he's well educated in the West, and he understands he speaks English, I'm sure, and he was taught when he was in Switzerland. So when he came back, I know he has an older brother that they tried to assassinate him, got him in Malaysia.
Did in fact assassinate him? Yeah.
Exactly. So that's what they say. But to me, what North Korea has to do is with Kim Il-sung. If you look at his grandfather Kim Il-sung, he was a supreme leader. So everybody worshipped the founding father, and when his father Kim Il took power, and they thought he was a puppet kind of hermit kingdom back then. So
hermit kingdom, yeah.
And when you look at we tried to do this Six Nations security talks in 2005 when Kim Il was in power. And that's when you talk about Six Nations, it includes Russia, Japan, South Korea, United States, China, and North Korea. Those are the major Six Nations that are affected within the Korean Peninsula, who has the influence to try to bring peace within the region.
Think that group will expand?
I think, possible. I know that Australia is interesting because they're being targeted as well. Maybe get Canada involved as well. But hopefully we can get some of these other countries involved and within the neighbors that try to pressure North Korea and Kim Il-sung. That's exactly what we're trying to do right now. So make them realize that we're not trying to destroy the regime or anything. We just want them to realize what the consequences are. And hopefully they can open up and unite as one Korea and work with the South. And when I proposed this, my APEC master plan back in 2011, I know that we tried to get the following year in 2012, through the state legislature, I have my good friend,
Carol Fukunaga,
Senator Carol Fukunaga. We introduced this Senate Resolution 55, which calls for asking Kim Il-sung to come to Hawaii for signing this peace treaty agreement, and hopefully unite North and South.
That's a lovely idea.
Then the APEC organization can work together, and we're thinking of having North Korea join in with South Korea.
Who would object to that? Because it could only mean a better prospect of peace, right? So who objected to it? This did not pass. This resolution did not succeed in the state legislature here in Hawaii. Why?
I guess they didn't have that vision of trying to push forward, but we were going to ask the United Nations to come up with a similar kind of resolution, so the United Nations Security Council can take up on this. And
now, what about the local community? I mean, we have a lot of Korean people, and they're a tight community. They're together. They have that immigrant energy that we like so much. They're doing business here. They're growing in every way. Did they support or oppose this resolution back in, 2012?
I think back then, I know I sent some a copy to the Korean consulate here as well. So they had some ideas what we were trying to do, and hopefully see which direction that was going to take. But at the time being, I know they were going to try this Six Nations security talks in year 2012 in Beijing, China, matter of fact. And what happened because of the dialogues didn't go through, they canceled the meeting. So now we never had anything to do with the Six Nations security
You
talks.
think
We
this
convened it.
resolution that you organized in 2012 and Carol Fukunaga put in, do you think that it could happen again? Do you think that there's enough political will for Hawaii to step up to the plate? And for the community, the Korean community, which is largely, in fact, almost unanimously South Korean, right? And they may be angry at North Korea. Maybe they don't like a resolution that calls for peace because they feel that, that it would not work out well. But do you think there's a chance that Hawaii could play a role in some way going forward, as you envisioned back in 2012?
Actually, I think the messages already went through with the administration. I remember when President Barack Obama was in power, he actually visited the borderline at 38th parallel with the binoculars and looking through the North Korea territory. So we're trying to gear up with the Six Nations security talks back then. And hopefully the United Nations, Ban Ki-moon was the Secretary General. As you know, he was a South Korean native over there. Yeah. And he was very concerned with bringing peace with North and South. And to me, with right now, with the presidential election in South Korea, which is going to be held next week, Tuesday, as you know, Park Geun-hye, the current president, was impeached. So, there's a lot of turmoil in South Korea in the leadership role.
On that note, I want to take a short break. When we come back, we're going to talk about how we talked about what we like to see. Now when we come back, we're going to talk about predictions. We're going to talk about predictions of these various threads that are happening, various issues that relate to the possibility of peace and to the future of the relationship between South Korea, North Korea, and the U.S. involvement there. We take a short break, Russell. We'll be right back.
This guy look familiar? He calls himself the Ultra Fan, but that doesn't explain all this.
Why? Why?
He planned this party, planned the snacks, he even planned to coordinate colored shirts, but he didn't plan to have a good time.
Go!
Now you wouldn't do this in your own house, so don't do it in your team's house. Know your limits and plan ahead so that everyone can have a good time.
Here with Russell Hanma here in ThinkTech Global. He is an APEC Master Plan author, and he is actually a nominee for U.S. and Hawaii Nobel Peace Prize laureate status. And he joins us from time to time, talks about political and diplomatic issues and initiatives in Asia Pacific, because he's actively involved in that as the U.S. Trade representative here in Hawaii. So, Russell, let's go forward and try to identify some of the vectors and influences and phenomena that will, affect the likelihood of peace, the likelihood of a coming together here within our lifetimes. And let's look at the things that will exacerbate the current hostility. What do you think? Name some big ones that are going to have an effect on things. Well, first of all, I mean, the Trump administration, in my view, is not having a good effect. It's exacerbating and raising the level of hostility, I think. What do you think about that?
Well, I know, like 2 days ago, I know that President Donald Trump made a statement saying that he would like to meet Kim and Un and discuss about the peace treaty or what can they offer. And I guess
Maybe he'd become buddies already, the
more
way
and
he
more
is
so,
with
but
Xi
we don't want to do
Jinping,
that
huh?
right away. We don't want to do that right away. We want to make sure that North Korea complies with the United Nations Security Resolution, that they're willing to denuclearize or their nuclear
So Trump should not
weapons.
meet with Kim Jong-un right now.
Right now, I guess we can use our Rex Tillerson or some of these negotiators
At
that
a
we
lesser
have.
level than the
And
president.
I know that our former ambassador to South Korea, Kim Sung, who was born and raised in Korea, he speaks fluent Korean language. So I know that he's been in a dialogue with North Korea, trying to come up with some kind of meeting and hopefully work with the South Koreans and for this unification process that they're trying to do.
Yeah, if you were now, if Donald Trump were right out there with Rex Tillerson and all the boys, and you were in the Oval Office, maybe this will happen, Russell. What would you advise them? What would you tell them to do to get to a better result than war and attacking their neighbors and trying to attack the U.S.?
Well, if I was to sit in the Oval Office, I would just want to make sure if we can reunite the Six Nations security talks again and hopefully get Australia involved and Canada and lay it on the table, give them some economic opportunity. I know that North Korea has roughly 24 million people, and 1.1 million people are roughly have this small business. They're giving them like Pyongyang, they call it, and they have this small booth and like a kiosk, so they can do some side businesses to generate income. Because if you're just working for a state-owned enterprise and reporting to job, they get paid like $1 a month, and they can't feed them. So during the time when Kim and
This is
Il's-
recent. The development of this new marketplace, it's a new marketplace. There was an article also in the paper recently about how there's a flowering of this local economy kind of phenomenon in North Korea. And one has to assume that Kim Jong-un knows about it or encourages it or feels or incentivizes it and feels that that's the right path for the country. But it's different, isn't it?
Yeah, it's like, if you look at I know they did a study with South Korea Institute that how North Korea generates revenue. Roughly per day, they're generating about tax revenues from this Pyongyang, from the business, about $220,000 of revenues
I saw that.
per day. And based on
So
the
that's a
money-
good reason to incentivize it, eh?
Exactly. So they're kind of learning from communism, and maybe they're making that shift to socialism eventually, and hopefully, instead of running from a free enterprise like being under the state-owned enterprises, they can be more entrepreneurial, and that's when the South Koreans can help them as well. Reopen the Kaohsiung Industrial Park, bring in more businesses in there.
Are the South Koreans interested in doing that? I mean, certainly they're prepared for a debacle. They have the weapons, largely from us. They have long-term and short-term missiles and all that. They have all kinds of equipment to deliver those missiles. So they could engage. But would they prefer a peaceful resolution? If I talk to the average South Korean, is he going to want reunification, you think?
But I think if you look at the North Korean's constitution, it states that there's two articles in there. One is they want to go with the nuclear program, and other one is economic development for businesses. So, to them, they want to make money for the economic opportunity and use those revenues to go into their missiles and nuclear programs. And if you, based on what the intelligence that we get, they have enough plutonium, uranium to make 6 nuclear bombs per year.
Yeah.
So and they have about 1,000 ICBM, intercontinental ballistic missiles.
Putting a lot of money into that.
Right, and so and they have different kind of categories of missile capability, and their technology is improving. So we're afraid that eventually they're going to have the capability to target there. Right now with their ICBM, they call it Moose Bomb. That's their latest rocket that has the distance about 4,000 kilometers, which hits Anchorage, Canada.
But not Hawaii.
Hawaii is kind of right in between, but I don't think they have the technology to calculate the longitude and latitude from the satellite to pinpoint the position.
But that's not hard, actually, when you get the right people to help you do that. And you probably. The other thing is that he's arresting people all the time. You go there and you try to get involved even as a tourist, and you wind up getting arrested. That kid, college kid who pulled a poster off the
Right.
wall. He got some huge prison sentence, and oh gosh, that was just awful. That is political, of course, and he does that on a regular basis. This does not make for better relations. So, I mean, what is on the man's mind? Why does he do that? Why does he roll the nuclear weapons through the street? Why does he build the rockets? Why does he spend all the money, not for food, but for, what is he doing? Why? What's in his mind? And let's assume he's wily like a fox. And he's not crazy, he's not paranoid, he's just wily. Why is he doing that?
Well, let me put my Korean hat on for right now.
Okay, try it, yeah.
And I think there's actually 3 American citizens who are locked up right now. One was that Bai, who was a minister. He was right in the borderline. He used to go to North Korea to preach Christianity.
So
there.
the preaching is what got him locked up.
Yep. And the other one is a gentleman, the student that came on an excursion trip to pull down the poster from the hotel lobby. And number 3, recently there was a professor was over there, American citizen, that was teaching English in the North Korea university, and he was ready to go back, and he got caught on the airport at Pyongyang, and somehow because of that they wanted to use him as a hostage. And if you look at the psychology of North Koreans, they use that Maoism, the unrelenting kind of psychology that they try to use this. They try to confuse you purposely,
Fake you out.
and using the inverse psychology.
What does he want, though? Does he want everybody to send him things? I mean, he could get all kinds of aid, by just making peace and relaxing himself. But he doesn't want that. He just wants to raise the tension, raise the ante. I mean, it really makes you wonder about his mental status. But what does he want out of this? What do you think his long plan is?
I think he just wants the tension as well, and make sure that North Korea. I know there's a population of 24 million people, which China has 1.4 billion, and Japan has roughly about 170 million, and as well Russia has about 50 million, and the United States has about 330 or 40 million people. So if you look at all the population as well with the Six Nation Security nations that. And from a China's point of view, 24 million, that's like a drop in a bucket from
That's
1.
small, actually.
And that's how much people die in China per year.
Yeah,
So,
right.
so, they look at North Korea, but, in terms of trade, I know that 90% of their goods are coming from China. And the Russians are kind of standing by looking at it, because if you look at the history of communism from Leningrad to Joseph Stalin, and when Russia came over from North Korea after when China War was over and the World War II time, and when Japan lost the war, they lost the control of Korea. So Russian came over and took over for a while. And when they pulled out, when Syngman Rhee was the president back then, and he kind of defected the country.
Well, there are
because of the
some
overthrow.
countries out there, maybe Russia and China, no matter what Xi Jinping says to Donald Trump or Rex Tillerson, who would like to see this contention continue, because it keeps everybody off balance. And if they're looking for hegemony in that area, they probably want to see North Korea, continue the tension. But I just wonder at the end of the day what he really wants. Maybe, as you suggest, he wants to be recognized. He wants to, even with his 24 million people and his lousy economy, he wants to be recognized as somebody to reckon with, a world power. But let me do this. Now we're at the end of our show, Russell. See camera 1 over there. Let's make believe that what's his name, Kim Jong-un is at the other end of that, and you would like to talk to him, and you would like to say to him what he needs to hear in order to relax and make peace instead of rattle sabers all the time. So, Russell, what would you say to him?
Well, right now, I guess our President Trump administration and Donald Trump mentioned that he wants to meet with Kim Un. So hopefully, if they can denuclearize the nuclear program for economic opportunity in return, so their country can have prosperity there. and putting more food on the table, more cost of goods sold and tangible goods, so the economy can grow, and hopefully they can have a unification with North Korea and work together as two Koreas, brothers and sisters. Hopefully, then eventually, if that happens, then the international community will accept North Korea and then try to help them out. And we might even give them a seat in the APEC conference with the APEC Business Advisory Committee, so they can discuss some of these business opportunities for them to come. Yeah. And I think, in the long run, if the North Koreans, because of the propaganda with the media, they're not getting information. I know that South Koreans are sending this balloon with all these pamphlets and brochures attached to the air balloon so they can read what's going on. And based on some of these people that from the North Korea realizing what the consequences are, you've seen a lot of defectors now, and hopefully China is realizing that too. So, you got to work together. And to me, the Russian, because of the history of the Communist Party, Vladimir Putin and the Russian Federation got to step up to the plate and hopefully work with China and with Xi Jinping and the leaders to see if they can denuclearize North Korea and tell Kim Jong-un to chill out.
Yeah, chill out. We've got to defang this thing because it's very uncomfortable and it stands in the way of a peaceful Pacific, and it stands in the way of the life and quality of life of the North Koreans. And there's got to be a better way than fighting. Thank you so much, Russell. Russell Hanma, U.S. Trade Representative, comes on our show. Thank you so much for this discussion.
Thank you, Jay.
Aloha.